Cursors. When a query is executed, the Oracle database creates a private memory area for data processing. This private memory area contains the data returned by the query and processing information about the data. The memory area is called a cursor. A cursor can hold more than one row, but can process only one row at a time. The rows in the cursor are called its result set. There are two types of SQL cursors. They include implicit and explicit cursors. Implicit cursors are declared and managed by the database for all SQL DML statements. They are unnamed. Explicit cursors are declared and named by the programmer. They are used to access the cursor for effective individual row processing. Both types of cursors have attributes which are used to track and manage them. The attributes return useful information about the status of the cursor. These cursor attributes can only be used by procedural statements. They are called by appending them to the cursor name. They include %is open. This attribute returns true if the cursor is already open. It returns false otherwise. %not found. This attribute returns true if a fetch statement returns 0 rows. It returns false otherwise. %row count. This attribute returns the number of rows fetched so far. %found. This attribute returns true if a fetch statement returns at least one row. It returns false otherwise. Implicit and explicit cursors. Implicit cursors. Implicit cursors are automatically created whenever any DML statement is executed. Implicit cursors are automatically managed by the Oracle database, so no coding is required to manage them. However, informative messages can be retrieved from their attributes. Explicit cursors. Explicit cursors must be declared with a valid identifier name and assigned to a specific query. The three main statements used to control a cursor are open, fetch, and close. Once the cursor is declared, the open statement initializes the cursor by running the associated query. The fetch statement moves a cursor row into a set of variables or a record. Once all the rows have been moved and processed, the cursor is closed with the close statement. The general declaration syntax of a cursor is: the cursor called employee_cur is declared and associated with a query that returns all employee records from the employees table. The cursor cycle. Opening the cursor. The declared cursor is opened in the execution section. The cursor status is verified before it is opened. The open statement executes the associated query and identifies the qualifying rows from the query. By default, the logical pointer identifies the first row as the current row available for a fetch. Fetching the cursor. The cursor rows can either be fetched into a record or into a list of variables. Once a row has been fetched, the logical pointer moves to the next row. This occurs until the pointer gets to the last row of the cursor. This repetitive search is usually achieved using iterative loops. Closing the cursor. Cursors are closed using the close statement. Once the cursor is closed, the cursor rows become undefined. Memory and processing resources are released. All operations referencing the closed cursor will fail and raise the predefined exception called invalid cursor. Trying to open an open cursor will also fail. Thus, all cursors must be explicitly closed at the end of a program. For example, the following example uses an explicit cursor to search and display the first 3 rows of the employees table. When the block is executed, the following output is displayed. The block declares a cursor called search_cursor. The cursor is assigned to a query which returns the first 3 rows of the employees table. The cursor is then used to declare a record data type called search_record. The %row type attribute is used, thus the record now contains all the cursor structural elements. In the execution section, the cursor status is checked using the %is open attribute. If the cursor is closed, then the open statement opens it by executing the cursor query. The fetching process is done inside the declared loop. Successive cursor rows are fetched into the record. A loop exit condition is declared with the cursor %not found attribute. This exit condition is met when all cursor rows have been processed. The DBMS output put underscore line procedure displays the 3 employee details. The close statement closes the cursor.